right, folks, grab a seat and pour your drink neat as Whiskers and Whiskey is back for the 2024-2025 season. Wow, we got in hot there. So using a different Zoom this time, and it's just recording. It doesn't give me an option. Do you want to save to the cloud? Do you want to save to your computer? It's just like we're rolling hot. So that's it. Mike is back with EJ, just stumbling out of the gates here. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing great. I can't believe this season's already upon us. Couldn't have come at a better time.
I can't believe this is our fourth year. We're 4 years into this thing.
I know. That's also pretty crazy. As you can see, I've upgraded my situation here. I'm currently in the Home Alone basement, as you can see. More to that story in a little bit, but just excited to be talking about football again. Doing this preview was a lot of fun last year, yes. And the second I got this, our pick six previews document to overlook, or to look over for this. It just got me so joyous. Like I was just ready. I was ready.
Yeah, it's weird, it's Power Four now, and trying to look at the expanded playoff and everything. Like and these conference changes. It's like the ACC. I don't think any of us were super thrilled to preview the ACC last year. It was pretty cut and dry, but this is definitely a more interesting conference this year, I gotta say. Across the board, I think that there's a lot of excitement, a lot of possibilities in all the conferences. So everyone is buckling in. Even the Pac-2 is buckling in for an exciting 2024-2025 football season. That's for damn sure.
Yes, definitely. I guess before we get started into this, and I guess we can also just talk about broadly what's going to happen in the coming weeks here. But first, we both had some changes in our lives. So I know, like last season, we were both tackling being first-time dads, and now we have both added another to the family. So now we are operating on a man-to-man defense now instead of the zone defense as before. So those are pretty big changes for both of us. And then the other huge one is when we started this journey 4 years ago, our HQ was down in good old Virginia, but HQ has moved for both of us.
Yes, both of us now reside. I think it's a lot more appropriate to be in the Steel City, to be in Pittsburgh. The cradle of quarterbacks, some would say, Western Pennsylvania football. It just feels good. It's a homecoming for me. It's a long time coming for EJ, but a homecoming for his lovely wife. And we are just super, super excited. A lot of changes happening, but the one consistency in your life, folks, will be Whiskers and Whiskeys. That's the one consistency there.
Yes. And it is, like I said, couldn't have come at a better time to try and get my mind off of other things, or just truthfully some energy. Some energy to keep me going, because the little one is having quite the sleep regression currently.
Brother, and as EJ sits here, he's a little ahead of me. I'm still on pat leave. I have another month of pat leave left, so I'm actually having a drink tonight, because I can do that type of thing. It's going to bite me, because I get up with my oldest and I take her to daycare and everything like that. And she's up early, but not as early as yours sometimes. But I do want to share what I'm drinking tonight. Shout out to the Cuzzy, Dan Lichtus, for this stuff. This is from our golf tournament this weekend. He got this for me. This is from Wayne Gretzky's vineyard and distillery in Ontario, or it was the Niagara on the Lake. Yeah, in Ontario, Canada. This is 99 proof whiskey, because Gretzky. Let's see. It was an American oak cask finished in Cab Sav barrels. I had just a nip of this last night. It was so good. It is dangerously good. So I'm gonna have another little nip tonight as we're kicking off here. So just a nip, just a little bit. So thrilled, because I got work to do after this, even though I am on paternity leave. The East Carolina Pirates have 2 more games, and then we're going bowling. So I got to do some recruiting, got to get a couple last recruits in, win 2 more regular season games, and then we'll see what the future holds. But I'm committed to the East Carolina Pirates for the next 2 games.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm there. I'm through the off season after taking the job at Georgia Tech, and I'm getting ready to.
How is that going?
It's going well. I was really aggravated how my season ended at Louisiana Tech. Nothing but love for the Bulldogs, but took them to the Natty and lost in the last few minutes and then in over. Well,
who'd you lose to?
Don't want to talk about it. That Colt out west. Down in College Station. So.
No.
Yeah, I will tell you that game. I mean, mind you, guys, I'm playing on varsity because I don't want to hate myself and throw something at my computer.
We're not playing on Heisman. Yeah, no shade.
At my TV, like an All-American, I'm on the cusp. I want to make sure I'm still enjoying myself. I was up 8 going into the last drive, just had to get a first down type deal, couldn't do it because all of a sudden the Aggie players realized they were 5 stars and my 2-star guys out of Ruston, it just kind of leaked, so they tied the game, and then in overtime again it was just like all of a sudden the gains that I made during the game, like, it just didn't matter. So
dude, this game after the update that just happened, so I've been playing placement accuracy passing. I might switch to revamped because after the update I was missing I think I dialed it in, but all of a sudden I was missing passes I used to make, and I was just playing Tulsa, and I was smacking them around, and all of a sudden I just could not, everything I was doing on defense could not stop them. They Herschel Walker was in their backfield, it was insane. I could not tackle those guys. So but yeah, hey, cheers, bud.
Hey, cheers. This is totally, as you can see, or as you can hear and somewhat see, I'm sure some of you listeners have taken the plunge into NCAA 25. It's been so great, especially for college football fans. Yeah. We could sit here and do a podcast on our respective coaching careers thus far. Maybe we will, but to not derail this conversation too much, we just want to talk about what's to come. So we are going to do our college football preview like we did last year, but this is going to be a little different because, as you know, the college football landscape is different as well. So we decided, instead of having one massive episode, we are going to do 5 separate episodes. So we're going to do the 4 Power 4 conferences, again with the same concept. Is we're going to try and decide who's going to be in the conference championship and who's going to end up being the champion. And then the real challenge this year is figuring out who's going to be a part of this 12-man playoff, and then ultimately who's going to be the national champion. So it is going to be exciting. It is very difficult, as we speak. We're on the ACC preview. That's the one today. But I'm still personally digging through the Big 12, the SEC, and then what I'm going to do about that group of 5 at-large bid. So
that one for me was super easy. I there's, I did some research, couple contenders, and I found one. I'm this just feels right. So I feel pretty confident in it too. So we'll get to that, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do, and this is, honestly, we're going to be releasing 2 episodes a week because it is upon us. So we are going to do this, and then eventually towards the end of August is going to be our first Tales of the Trophies season, and we will talk more about that at another time. But for now, why don't we get right into our ACC preview?
Let's do it.
So I guess the first thing to talk about is just to remind people the ACC is not the same as it was last year. So they added SMU, Southern Methodist University, and the Pony Express, and then the 2 nerd schools out west, Cal and Stanford. So I don't know what the latter really bring to the conference, at least immediately, but SMU, they got a little bit of steam coming into a new conference.
Very interesting. I'll talk about them a little bit more, obviously, as we get into the preview and stuff like that. But very definitely, there's a team that's raising eyebrows. It's SMU, and if I were to get a job offer from them in NCAA, I would definitely be interested in taking that. I'll say that much. So
yeah, and I think this just kind of really highlights, if you didn't realize now, that geography doesn't matter for conferences.
not at
I
all.
think this is the one, the Atlantic Coastal Conference, adding a team in Texas and then two West Coast teams. So
Yeah.
just if it wasn't very clear before, this conference really really shined a spotlight on it.
We're a global economy. Some would say we're a global society. We are definitely global. Well, at least transcontinental conferences at this point. So
yes. So I just thought we could quickly, before we get into our picks for this year and kind of talk through the teams and which ones we think are interesting. I thought I'd just give a little refresher on what happened last year. So just overall with the ACC conference, the 2023 results. So if you guys can remember, undefeated Florida State at this point had already lost Jordan Travis to injury, but they went into the conference championship against a pretty surprising opponent in Louisville. They definitely took advantage of a softer schedule and got their way in there, and so that was quite the game.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot, kind of going back and looking at all this again. I mean, Louisville was like the team for a while until, as I correctly guessed, they stumbled into Pitt on a cold, rainy Saturday. And Pitt got them. When Pitt's down, they are always good for that. They're going to get someone. Even when they're up, they'll get someone. And they, when you're at your hottest, you don't want to play the Panthers, or sometimes you do. But anyways, got them last year, and yeah, I mean, I think it was one other thing that I kind of, in the moment, I was like, last year I was like, Florida State does not belong in the playoff, but then kind of looking back on it all, I'm like, should we not have let them in? I don't know, shouldn't they have had a seat at the table? But now obviously, so a lot changes there, a lot remains the same. But I don't know, man. I guess the right team won in the end. I don't think Florida State was getting past Michigan if that would have worked out, but it was definitely interesting looking back on this in hindsight, I'll say.
Yeah, I just think again, in the moment, I didn't think they deserved. Okay, deserved isn't the best word to say. I think they earned it, but I don't think with their second or third string quarterback, I just don't think they were one of the best four. I don't know who they would have beaten out of those four, right? So I think Bama played really tough. Obviously, Michigan won it all.
They wouldn't have beat Washington. They couldn't have taken Texas, but
right. So it's just it's tough because yes, Travis is there. They could have very well competed for the national championship, but I really do think that was too much to overcome. And even in this year, would that team have gotten past the semis anyway? I mean, they could have potentially won the one game to get there. I don't know. Yeah, I think that was too much to overcome.
A lot of if it was an expanded field, I think they would have won their first one. I think another thing, they did have a lot of come from behind victories. One thing I think that I forgot is Travis said he was like, I wish I would have just got hurt earlier in the season, knocked out earlier in the season, so you could see how we could still ball out.
Yeah,
it's so.
It's tough. It was a tough circumstance, but I feel pretty comfortable saying I don't know that they would have beaten any of the four that got to the playoff last year.
No, maybe not.
It would have been close. I don't think they were getting blown out. Their defense was good enough. They obviously had some very good skill players, but I don't know that it would have been enough with the backup quarterback. But this year it won't matter.
It will not.
So just a reminder for ourselves and for the fans, our picks and predictions last year, we had the exact same picks. So we both picked Florida State to win the ACC, and we both picked them over Clemson. It was just one of those things. I don't think either of us really loved the idea of Clemson, but we were hopeful. Okay, I don't want to say hopeful because obviously you have a disdain for Clemson and Dabo Sweeney, but I think we thought that they would, with a new offensive coordinator, with Klubnik being, having experience, 5-star kid, like we expected the offense to take a step forward to match the elite defense that continues to be there, and it just didn't.
And who else was there, right? I mean,
Right,
like going
exactly.
into the season last year, like that was it, you know. But this year, I think that there's quite a few contenders. I think it's pretty wide open. In general, I think the ACC is very wide open this year.
All right, so then why don't we get to what we're thinking right now? So, how do you want to do this? I don't remember how we did it last year.
Yeah, I think what we can do is probably talk a little bit about who we think are like the biggest contenders,
Okay,
and then maybe some pretenders, and then some dark horses, and then we can kind of like give maybe you start with the team, you go through it, and then I'll go, and we'll see kind of how it progresses. So we'll start with our contenders, and then we'll go pretenders, and then dark horses.
okay, this is interesting. Okay, so contenders, I think. I think it's hard to look past Miami this year. I think it is all about the U. I think the biggest things for me. So if you remember last year, I mean, obviously there's one defining moment that people remember from Miami, but they were on a run before they hit that Georgia Tech game, and then that kind of derailed their season. The quarterback just really decided to not want to play football anymore. I feel like the team just kind of lost confidence in the coach and potentially each other, and I feel like that really kind of snowballed on them.
Yeah. They started out strong with the wins against Clemson and A&M, and then that Georgia Tech. I mean, I forgot they lost to Rutgers in their bowl game last year.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing against Shiano and everything,
Sure.
Spoiler, but I think he's building something good there. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that the biggest thing about Miami last year, I think the thing this year is talent, right?
Yeah.
Number 4 class last year, number 7 class the year before, 2 consecutive top 10 transfer classes. They absolutely gutted the Pac-2 because now they got Cam Ward from Wazoo and Damian Martinez from Oregon State. They also got Sam Brown from Houston, Powell, the wide receiver from Washington, and then they got D lineman from Tennessee, linebacker from Louisville. Like, they got a lot of really strong transfers, and they have a ton of blue chip talent in recruiting. So I think that that's going to be really they should. I know last year a lot of people were saying with the talent that they have that they should get it done. This year with the talent they have, they should absolutely steamroll most of the ACC.
Yeah, and I think like what you said is right, and the biggest thing for me is the sleeping giant that arrived last year and is only going to continue to get better is like, you can question Cristobal's game day decisions all you want, but the dude can recruit offensive linemen, and Oregon, I feel like, is still reaping the benefits of what he's done.
Yeah.
And last year you had an offensive line that was, top 20 in both, run and pass offense, as far as like being able to pass protect and move people out of the way. And they're returning 3 starters and have blue chip guys, 5-star guys, major Power 5 transfers that are going to fill the other 2 spots. So then you add that to a quarterback that fits the air raid, right? I mean, you can't fit any better coming from Wazoo.
Yeah.
So you have him, who will also benefit. I think one of the biggest things they struggled with last year was red zone efficiency. Well, having a dual threat guy like him is going to help. I think he had like 8 or so touchdowns himself rushing last year. And then the slot receiver is usually the receiver that benefits the most out of the air raid, and they got their guy back. So it just seems like, especially on offense, this team should take a huge leap forward.
Yeah, the only question, like, I agree completely. Like, Restrepo should have a big year. Like, Ward is a great fit for this offense. Like, stud offensive linemen. All 5 of them had ACC honors last year. The only potential weak point is on the other side of the ball. Now, up front, they're all set. Like, great D linemen, great linebacking core. Secondary is like the one piece that's like a little bit questionable. But so much talent from recruiting. Like it's got to come out in the end. And they, when I look at some of the games that they have, like at Florida to open is definitely going to be telling. They go to Cal before the bye, and then they're at Louisville after the bye. So like that's kind of an interesting little series of events right there. But they don't play Clemson, they don't play NC State. So I think that they've got some toughness in their schedule, but they can be focused and make good decisions, make reasonable choices.
Yeah.
Then I can see, I think I have them. I have them at least at I actually took their over. They're at 10.5 wins. I'm going to take the over for them, over 10.5 wins. I struggle seeing them losing 2, as long as they make reasonable choices.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think twice. It's happened twice now, so you got to think that's got to be front of mind for him.
Yeah.
Okay, what's another contender on your end?
Louisville. Like let's just run it back from last year. Jeff Brom came home, took Louisville to the championship game. As we mentioned, they were a darling up until the Pitt upset. Had some losses at the end of the season, but you know what, man? They got really strong transfer class. They got Ja'Cory Brooks coming in for Bama at wide receiver. Recruiting only 58th ranked class, but like for them, I think it really starts and ends with the quarterback, Tyler Shoe, 7-year journeyman. Played at Oregon, played at Texas Tech. He's picking up his AARP checks right now. But I think if he can make it work, if he can stay healthy, and I think he's going to obviously have people to throw to. Getting Brooks was huge. So I think that it is a big question mark for me, right? Is he going to be able to get it done? On defense, I think they're in pretty good shape. The defensive line's back. 9 starters are coming back. They got 2 transfers from the SEC. So, I think that their defense is going to be in pretty good shape. Brom is building something, I think, pretty good there in Louisville. So when I look at contenders, like, and names that like you would think probably common picks in the ACC, that's the other one that I would say is a contender right now. They are. What is their win total? I don't have their win total right now, but I can see them at least getting to 9. It's just the quarterback play is going to be the biggest question mark. So I don't think I'm going to bet on the over on their win totals. I lean that right now, but the quarterback play will be a big question.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think just the offensive, like I don't want to say rebuild, but just like the retooling that they have on offense is probably the biggest question mark, right? Losing both running backs, obviously having to replace a quarterback. The offensive line was pretty good, but they have to replace some of those guys too. And then, like you had mentioned, I mean, pass catchers were terrible last year, right? They had the one dude and he got triple covered and thrashed. It's to be determined because I get like Ja'Cory Brooks is a Bama guy, but like that was kind of one of the biggest problems for Alabama is they didn't have that guy skilled wide receiver like they've just had over the years. So it's not like this is a real blue. This isn't Devonta Smith, transferring into Louisville, right? This isn't Jalen Waddle. So it's,
it's not slim. Yeah, it's totally like I think Brooks and Bond. Bama had all their receivers transfer out, right? So it's like, and it's to your point, it's not, Ruggs, Smith, Judy, Waddle, they're transferring out. They're probably a step down, but I will say the way that those guys, especially Ja'Cory Brooks and Isaiah Bond play at the end of the year, it's like, and how much of that I wonder at the beginning too was also on Milrow, which we're getting to, we're getting to SEC territory, so I don't need to go there right now. But I do think that it's a good pickup. So,
yes. Okay.
Any other contenders, Edmund, on your end?
Yeah. This is a team that I really like this year. I'm interested. It's really interesting because you have, for me, looking through this, it was Miami for me. So
Yeah,
spoiler alert, definitely have them in the championship.
same.
And then it was like who to put them in. It's kind of like what we did with last year. Like it was just so obvious it was Florida State. But who's next? And I think there's a good grouping of teams, and one that I'm excited for and interested in is the Wolfpack this year. So I do like NC State. I think the biggest question mark, but it could also be the biggest positive for them is their change in quarterback, and it's someone that I'd say a lot of college football fans are familiar with. We definitely are and love him, and Grayson McCall.
The
So
Fun
it's
Belt
just
stud.
right. So it's just the big question is, he had so much success at Coastal Carolina, but that is Coastal Carolina. So can that translate at the, Power Five level? I think it's obviously fortunate that the ACC is not, the Big Ten or the SEC. So I'm banking on him not taking a step back with. It's not that he hasn't played to top talent, right? But it's just continuously and consistently playing, higher level of competition. So I think you add him. You add the running back who was a 4-star transfer that had 1,600 yards as Duke's feature back, and then they had the true freshman Casey Concepcion, who was an absolute stud last year with a very bad pass offense. So I think when you're looking at McCall, you're giving him a high-end running back, an NFL most likely first round pick wide receiver in the future. And then the offensive linemen, they had 3 that were all ACC last year and 2 of them return. And so the ones that they replaced, they seem to have gotten some other Power 5 transfers, one being from Notre Dame to help fill that out. But that offensive line was good last year and should continue to improve this year too. So you're kind of insulating him, which is nice. And then I guess like the biggest question mark for me is the defense. And while it wasn't bad, and it got a lot better as the season went on. I'd say it was for the most part pretty average, which is okay. So I think that it's not necessarily elite, but they're returning a lot back. And honestly, one of the biggest tipping points for me was they got one of the softest schedules. They're kind of riding that Louisville train last year, right? I think it was 2 of the top 8 projected, top 8 in the ACC is who they're playing this year. So that helps.
You nailed it. They're firmly in my dark horse category. But I mean, I the schedule's the biggest thing for me, right? I mean, yes, they had top 30 recruiting class, top 20 transfer class this year, which is great for them, right? But the schedule is just cake. And I have them in my underdog or my dark horse category, just because they are projected at 8.5 wins. So I'm definitely taking the over on that. I think that's a really good play for all of our friends out there who are gamblers. So I'm definitely taking them to get over 8.5 wins. So, I could definitely see them with the easy schedule, that being their way to getting to the championship game. They are not. I'm with you. As Miami is my pick for the one. I think that's one thing we both agree on. They're not my other team in the ACC championship game. That wouldn't be super surprised if they get there. Cause I'm just looking at their schedule. Like they have at Clemson in week 4. And that's about it. They go to Cal. They end the season at Georgia Tech and at UNC. But they have one test. So over 8.5 wins, I think is definitely doable for these guys.
Anyone else that you want to put into the contenders?
So I have no other contenders. I do have some overrated, and then I have one other dark horse. I think just one other dark horse. So.
Okay,
2 other dark horses actually, but
interesting.
Yeah. All right, so I can start on my overrated teams. Overrated. Gosh. Okay, I'll start with this one because it might be a little bit contentious. Florida State. Man, like we talked about it, incredible season. Number 12 recruiting class. They got TJ Ferguson and Earl Little from Bama in the transfer portal. But it is a gut job. Jordan Travis is gone. The running back's gone. 2 wide receivers. Shout out Keon Coleman. I wish you're going to do great things in the league. You're awesome. Tight end, 2 offensive linemen are gone. And, DJ U's coming in. Like, I know that he had some, he definitely took a step forward in Corvallis, but I just get a little nervous about him going back to the ACC. Maybe the West Coast was, the place that he can thrive. Definitely a little nervous about that. And then on defense, man, I mean, they lost 7 of 12 all ACC players. They get some end rushers back. They got some Power 5 transfers, but there are just too many unknowns. And the middle of the season is a real grind. They got Clemson, Miami, UNC, and they travel to Ireland as well. I think it's gonna be a tough season for the Seminoles. And I think that them not making the playoffs and then their backups just getting absolutely walloped in their bowl game doesn't help. So I don't think that I don't know how much that type of momentum or lack thereof carries over, but I think it's going to be tough sledding in Tallahassee this year.
I couldn't agree with you more. I do think that there's just too many unknowns, and the players that they brought in, there's just like no surefire thing. Like, I agree with you with DJU. It was really refreshing to see him be on a successful team out in Oregon State, one of my favorite teams. Shout out Beavs. It was very clear that it was very obvious that it was, driven by a great offensive line, a really great running, power running game, and asking him to not do too much. And I have a fear that Florida State, he's going to have to do a bit too much.
Yeah, I agree completely. And you just heard me uncork a little bit more whiskey. I said I was only going to have one, but I'm going to just have a little bit more just because we're getting into it. So, okay. So I will say, when I look at Florida State's total, I didn't pick them for their totals. Whatever their total is, it's probably right where it should be. It's probably 9.5. And
they also play Notre Dame, so if you're considering in South Bend, so that's another not so great challenge for them. And if you're looking for more holistically, obviously that's not going to affect their ACC chances, but that will affect their total win. So my lean would be to the under. I agree. I think they'll probably in that tough little middle there. I think that they'll probably not lose all of them, but sure, that's going to be tough. All right. Do you have any other overrated teams? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For us, they're rated about exactly where we think they're rated, but it's just Clemson again. Yep. Until they show, it's getting to a point now where you're having Dabo really run it into the ground with his reluctance to do literally anything in the transfer portal. They brought in 0 people, and it's the defense still elite level. I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to do this. They still recruit pretty well, so don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm saying they're completely terrible, but at the same time, the offense just hasn't taken a step forward, and they're bringing back Klubnik. They're bringing back the offensive coordinator Garrett Riley. And it's he was supposed to make a jump. You can't anticipate potentially a second year jump out of these guys, but at the same time, it's okay, well, they don't have the offensive line they used to, and that just continues to get worse and worse and worse. Yeah. They barely had any receivers last year, and that person is gone, and Will Shipley's gone. So I think while their schedule is easy, so I don't anticipate them being worse than 8-4 last year, I just don't see them truthfully contending in the ACC this year.
But I mean, we're same page. Surprise, surprise. I think You nailed it. Dabo's running this program into the ground by ignoring the transfer portal. Like,
Yeah.
dude, this is the way it is. I don't care if you don't like it, but it's the way it is. And I think there's a difference with teams of a certain caliber. When you lose talent, sometimes you reload, sometimes you rebuild. Their defense still has enough talent that they're in the reload phase, but not for long. Right. It's a total rebuild on offense. And, there's just Klubnik and Riley, like, yeah, maybe, second year they'll take a step forward, but I mean, gosh, it's gutted. So, I definitely can see them, having a tough time this year, for sure. So,
yeah.
So do we want to take a quick break before we get into our dark horses, and then we'll get into our champions?
Yes.
Let's do it. And we're back. Okay, so we had just wrapped up our contenders and our pretenders. Now let's get to the dark horses. I believe it's my turn, but EJ, would you like to go first?
Yeah, because I think I know one of yours. Because you kind of hinted at it very early on, so I might as well. Because I think I have a different one. So
actually, I have that one, but I have a different one too. Okay. So you go. I want to see what you have. All
right. This is a team that I'm rooting for. I always liked them when they had their heyday.
Like oh my God,
early 2000s when I was growing up. They have one of the best traditions. In all of college football. Honestly, a shame that I didn't get to see a game in person while I lived in this state.
Say it.
But I think it's time for the Hokies to reclaim some of their old glory. We need some Beamer.
Yes. Beamer ball. And Blacksburg's so far away. Yes. Oh.
Yes, it is. So I just think like last year they seem to have found a quarterback. They had a transfer from Baylor, Drones, and he they were very smart because he's definitely more of a runner than he is a passer, and they revamped the offense to his strengths, and it worked. Mm-hmm. And he was still pretty good at short completions, didn't turn the ball over. His biggest weakness is deep ball passes. Hopefully he can change that, because if they do, watch out, because they had an above average offensive line. They had the so-called bad boy receiver
bad
unit,
boys trio,
an awesome name for receivers. And they just have a truthfully all around a veteran team. Their defense was a top 25 defense, and it returns a lot of that defense back. The offense seemed to
returning, yes,
right. The offense seemed to finally click once Drones started and started to play well. And again, similar to NC State, these guys draw. I think it says 6 of the ACC's bottom 9. Mm-hmm. So that's gonna help. And one of the bigger teams, Clemson, that they have comes to Lane Stadium, and I hope that is a night game, because I think that they could very well win that later in the season. So I think this is just perfect. The Hokies always have a great fan base. They just need a little bit of hope, and I think like if they do end up starting the season off well, if they can beat Old Dominion, because that's always the biggest question that seems to be their bugaboo. Lane Stadium is just a hard place to play, and so they can bring that home field back. And I'm looking forward to watching the Hokies this year.
Dude, we are reading the ACC the exact same. I mean,
and betting them. We can bet them now that we're out.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yes. And I plan on putting a ticket on over wins for them. I plan on putting an ACC championship ticket on them. I plan on putting a CFP appearance ticket on them, because you touch on the offense returns 10 starters, defense returns 9. They had a great end to their season. They just need to build on that momentum. I didn't know I'm so happy. I feel so validated now. I'm gonna increase my bets when I make them, because I didn't know, like, I saw a ton of promos for them for NCAA, the football game, and they also just dropped new unis, which I think are fire. So I thought maybe I was just riding the hype chain, but like drone strikes are coming in hot. The Bad Boys trio, they made, I didn't realize this, they made a joint statement together that they were all returning, which is awesome. They have Tudden, who is an 800-yard rusher. Malachi Thomas is back too. The entire offensive line. So that offense should be humming. Powell Ryland on the other side of the ball, Powell Ryland was second in the ACC with sacks. Dorian Strong and Mansour Delane holding down the secondary. Now, they do have the only tough spot in their schedule is to go to Miami, then they go to Stanford, which is not saying Stanford's anything, but it, going across to the West Coast, that could be kind of tough. But then they have a bye. And after that bye, I could definitely see them winning out. It's a total of 8.5 wins. I recommend everyone take that over. And then, like I said, I'm going to have a CFP ticket in for them. I am super high on the Hokies this year. Enter Sandman. Like, let's go, baby. Like, I am very excited to see what they can do this year.
I am too. So then why don't we wrap this up with your ponies, because that's got to be the other team.
Yeah. The ponies are the other team. Like, the stuff that they did to get into the ACC. Do you know that they offered to forego 9 years of TV money? But then right after that, they got $100 million in boosters. Like,
I was going to say they had a big booster.
They got the cash. So Preston Stone, their quarterback, obviously had a late leg injury last year. He needs to bounce back from that. But they have a stable of running backs and receivers that are back. They got some Power 5 transfers on the line. Their defense last year was top 40, and they have a lot of productivity returning to that. I think that they could definitely, first year in a Power 4 conference, there's obviously some struggles there, which is why I'm not super high on them, but I think they're going to make some noise. I think that they're going to get some people. Their win total is, I don't have it here right now, but I think I'm leaning taking the over on it. It's not an official play because I didn't list it down, but every day I lean a little bit more because it's just tough joining a Power 4 conference, right? Like, first year I hesitate doing that, and especially with the uncertainty of the quarterback returning from injury. But I think they're going to make some noise this year for sure. You're with me?
Yeah, I do think that they're going to be a team that you don't necessarily want to have to go to Texas to play.
Yeah.
I do think my hesitation with them is similar to you. It's just the jump, right? And how that can take some time. But I will say, obviously, it depends on his health, but you could very well argue that Preston Stone is the second best quarterback in that conference now. So I think anytime you have that, and their win total, at least on FanDuel, is 8.5. Okay. So anytime you have that, you have a chance. But I would say that they're probably going to be that team that's going to catch someone, that's going to definitely be bowl eligible. And then, I think they're going to, especially with boosters like that, be able to get themselves back in the into relevancy and probably in the top half of this conference.
So 8.5 wins at Nevada, FCS school, BYU, TCU, Florida State, at Louisville, bye, at Stanford, at Duke, Pitt, bye, Boston College, at Virginia, Cal. They avoid a lot of...
Yeah.
That
one's that's going to be close. And I think you're probably going to know pretty early on, right? Like, if they struggle with any of those first three before their bye going into TCU, then they're not likely to catch.
Yeah, I don't know enough about BYU,
at the end, but
yeah, and Nevada's always a question mark. Their offense is pretty fun.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I don't think they're going to necessarily lose those games, but if they don't look good in those games, then I have some hesitancy to think that they're going to be able to.
If they take those three, they can take their last six at Stanford, at Duke, Pitt, BC, at Virginia, Cal.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
All right, so why don't we wrap this up? What is
Let's do
who is going to be in your conference championship, and who is going to be the automatic bid out of the ACC?
Before I get to that, just to give you a summary of my bets. So Miami over 10.5 wins, NC State over 8.5 wins, big money on Virginia Tech over 8.5 wins with an ACC championship ticket, with a CFP appearance ticket, Cal under 6.5 wins, Pitt under 5.5 wins, University of Virginia under 4.5 wins. Those are the plays that I'm making for the ACC this year. My championship game is going to be the Miami Hurricanes and the Virginia Tech Hokies. I think the dark horse is going to get it done. I really am feeling them. I do think Miami gets it done. I think talent ultimately wins out on that, assuming a lot. They got to have their best season in the past 20 years this year, but there's no reason why they shouldn't be 11-1, getting that automatic bid. But if Virginia Tech makes it, I definitely see them in the playoff. So,
yes, and I looked on FanDuel. They also have Miami as the third best odds to win the conference. So, do with that what you will.
Yeah,
I'm going to be hammering that because I also have Miami in the conference championship, winning the conference championship. However, I have them playing the Wolf Pack. NC State.
They're my third team. They're my third team.
Yeah. And I would say, like, truthfully, again, like, I don't ever want to discount Florida State just because of the talent they have. But if I were to put a third team that I felt more comfortable with, it's probably Virginia Tech. So I feel like it's we're right there. Just kind of flip flopping those two. I'm likely to join you on at least the overs. I'm not sure about those unders, but definitely I was thinking the same thing with Miami, Virginia Tech, NC State on their overs. So and then Miami to win the conference. And the Hokies, that's interesting. I might sprinkle a little bit on that.
I mean, might as well. I mean, to have them win the ACC and to have just a CFP appearance. I haven't checked all those numbers on FanDuel. These are just numbers I've seen, online, stuff like that. So, I think it'll definitely give us something to root for this year together. So I think we should do it. We should become big Hokies guys this year. And shout out
Danny Diaz, who actually was like, you know what, because he's a Hokies fan, also a Gators fan because he went there. But he was talking up the Hokies before I dug into this, and I was like, I don't think I can believe you, Danny. They've been pretty terrible. And then after reading this, I was like, oh, actually, digging in a little deeper, he might be right. So
shout out to my coworkers who are Hokies alum, Nick Zullo, Connor Hoffman. I think whenever I do get back to work in a month, we should have a lot to talk about with that. So, yeah.
All right, so that's going to do it for us here with the ACC preview. The next one on the docket, which will be released in, let's see, if we're going to release this on the Monday, then the next one will be released on a Thursday. So you're going to get some double duty, and that is going to be the Big Ten. So for Mike, I'm EJ. Always remember, too much of anything is bad, but too much good whiskey is barely enough.
Back in the saddle, bud. Cheers, boys.